Welcome back to Small Caps. My name's Kerry Stevenson. I've got some really interesting news coming out of OZZ Resources. ASX code is OZZ. Nice and easy one to remember. We've got some projects over in Western Australia in my favourite commodity, that would be gold. Joining me today is Managing Director Jonathan Lea. Jonathan, great to see you. Thanks for joining me on Small Caps.
You're welcome. Good to see you again, Kerry.
Well, we spoke not that long ago. You only listed in July, but you've been madly drilling away and getting some interesting results from your Maguires project. But before we get into that, give our listeners a brief overview of who are OZZ, for those that may not know.
OZZ Resources are a West Australian focused and located junior gold explorer. We listed on July the 5th this year, so we've been on the boards for about 3 months. In that time, we've obviously completed our first drill campaign at Maguires and are actively exploring our other projects. We have 5 projects within Western Australia. 3 of them are around the Kumee-Cathara area, one close to Geraldton and one near Leonora, north of Kalgoorlie. So we have some very prospective ground, and our aim is to rapidly and effectively and efficiently explore that and define new gold resources.
Why are you so, why these areas? How did you come across these projects? Because you're drilling on Maguires at the moment. How much has been done in there in the past? Because I think BHP had it many, many, many years ago, didn't they?
That's true. To answer your bigger question, we picked all of our projects based on the prospectivity and their proximity to major crustal structures, which are known to be the major conduits for mineralising fluids. So we picked areas that we thought had the potential to have substantial gold resources. Maguires is a case in point. It's on one of the northern extension to the Big Bell Fault, which is a major structure, and the Big Bell mine operated for many years and produced many millions of ounces. And we're about 20 kilometres north of that. Maguires, as I said, has a number of shears running through it, which are related to the Big Bell Fault. And it was drilled by BHP and others in the 1980s and 1990s, largely because it didn't match their requirements for size, and then it was held by a number of small prospectors and small companies. It hasn't been drilled since the 1990s. So it's got where we came in, we had certainly good evidence of mineralisation, and our aim was in this drilling campaign was to confirm the presence of the mineralisation indicated by the earlier drilling of BHP, and then progressively move towards defining a JORC compliant resource.
Did you have a lot of data, historical data, that helped you where to put the drill bit?
Yeah, both. It's fairly obvious there are 2 major shears transecting the lease at Maguires. Old Prospect was the easternmost shear zone, and that's where most of the drilling in the past has been focused. But also the Maguires Reward Zone, which is about 1 kilometre to the west, has had 3 RC drill holes into it previously, and the best one of those came up with 4 metres at 19.1 grams per tonne as well. So there's definitely gold in the system, and our drilling was focused on Old Prospect to confirm the tenor of the gold, see if we could match the results that were achieved by the earlier drilling, and then, as I said, move on to a JORC compliant resource after the next stage of drilling.
Okay, so how much drilling have you done, and what's it, because a lot of people, by the way, are doing lots of drilling, but it takes a while to get the results back, but you're getting results back now. What's it telling you?
Okay, so we drilled 4,300 metres of RC drilling over 45 holes at Old Prospect. The best results were intervals such as 14 metres at 2.66 grams per tonne and 7 metres at 9.1 grams per tonne, with a host of other intercepts, from 3 to 4 to 5 metres, with grades, in 2 to 3 to 4 grams per tonne. So we've replicated what was done by and expanded upon what was done by BHP in the earlier drilling. So we're happy that the the structure is mineralised. There are two separate zones within Old Prospect, the north and south zones. They're separated by about 200 metres with very little drilling or no drilling practically between the two. The structures are open both at depth and along strike in all directions. So we really do need another stage of drilling now to see how far these structures go and how far the mineralisation goes. And that will be the basis of work in probably the first quarter next year.
So how deep have you been going with this sort of drilling? Is this all fairly close to surface, this mineralisation?
Yeah. The deepest holes were about 120 metres below surface. Okay. The majority of the drilling was, from fairly shallow up to about 80 metres, but we did put a couple of deeper holes down, and certainly there's still, all the signs indicate that the mineralisation is going at depth. The shear zones dip steeply to the west, and the mineralisation zones plunge steeply to the north. So we understand the mineralisation now, so we'll be able to target future extensions much better.
Jonathan, tell us a little bit about you guys that are behind this, because you've got a background in mining and finding gold, and I guess as an investor, it's interesting to know if we're going to put our hard-earned cash with you. You've done it before, and what you think you're going to achieve from this to give, I guess, value for shareholders. Where do you see the value coming in? Okay,
so as I said, Oz has 5 projects, and each one of them has the potential to host economic gold mineralisation. The background of the key players is myself. I've been a geologist for 35 years or more, mainly in gold, but I've also worked in iron ore and other minerals, base metals as well. A lot of that's been brownfields exploration, near mine and mine work. My exploration manager, Rob Seed, has been in exploration for over 25 years and has worked all around the world and has been involved in the discovery of some significant gold ore bodies. My project geo, Dave Bell, has had over 10 years experience and has been in the field for most of that, and the last 5 or 6 years has been in Western Australia in the areas we work in. So we've got a strong geological team, and that's backed by our chairman, Alan Lockett, who's been promoting and in the gold industry for many years as well. So we've got a strong team. Alan and I put the company together over the last 12 months up to the time of listing and acquired the projects. And we've both got strong links into the West Australian mining community and all the people involved in it. So we know where to go to get help. We know who to talk to, and we need to get things done. And I think the speed with which we completed our first drilling campaign, given the fact that drill rigs are hard to find and assay labs are hard to secure, etc., we've done very well. And,
I was actually going to point that out to our listeners, Jonathan, because you only listed in July. Here we are talking in October. You've done 4,300 metres of drilling. You've got the results back. What's next? Because are you going to continue with Maguires to drill that out?
Yeah, we will, but we're just getting the approvals to do that, and we'll be looking at drilling in the first quarter next year, which is hopefully like January, February next year. In the meantime, we are looking at our other projects. We're starting a soil geochemistry program this week or in the coming week at Rabbit Bore, which is one of our other major projects, and we're also doing an aeromag survey over Wadabi South, which is the project close to Meekatharra, a bit further north. Also, since we've listed, we've done an aeromag survey over Rabbit Bore and also Peter Wangi, which is a project near Geraldton. And so we've been active, and we've using a combination going forward of magnetics and surface geochemistry. We'll identify further targets to be drilling. So once we've got the next stage of Maguires out the way, we'll be looking at drilling at the targets we generate at Rabbit Bore and Peter Wangi, and also the projects near Leonora, which is 20 kilometres north of Leonora. That's very prospective. We're just finalising drilling approvals and heritage clearance up there. So hopefully that too will be able to drill in the first part of next year. And that's got at least 5 kilometres of strike of a major structure running through there, which hasn't been tested apart from the northern end, in which the trig deposit was defined. So we know there's mineralisation in the area, and once we've got the approvals, we'll be drilling. So we can see a strong pipeline of work over the next 12 months, which will be focused over all our projects, and we would hope to be improving and increasing the resource base. Certainly at Maguires, I'd hope after the next round of drilling we'll have enough data to put out a JORC compliant resource, and similarly with the other projects, that once we test the anomalies, which we generate both from the Aeromag and the soil geochem, we'll have targets which we'll need to follow up and define resources there as well. So we are going to be very busy. We're obviously cashed up because we've just listed, and we're putting a lot of the money onto the ground and into the ground, not and spending it wisely.
Spending it wisely, we like that as shareholders. You mentioned Maguires has got a couple of, did you say a couple of shear zones? And is that important?
Yeah, no, well, it just increases the potential for mineralisation. As I said, the old prospect zone we've drilled, and we need to do more drilling on it, but that's sort of, we understand that. 1 kilometre to the west, there's the Maguires reward zone, and it's only had 3 drill holes in the whole length, and it's got old workings to the north and the south just off the lease. So we've got over 1 kilometre of strike of basically untested shear zone, which is, it looks from a geological perspective as being identical to the old prospect. So we're hopeful that we'll identify some substantial zones of mineralisation in that as well. And as I said before, one of the 3 holes drilled there intercepted 4 metres at 19.1 grams per tonne. So there's clearly gold in the system. So it's a case of defining how big it is.
So between now and the end of the year, are you going to be doing more drilling at Maguires? Because you've mentioned you're doing a lot in the first quarter of next year. What can shareholders expect between now and that first quarter of next year? Got a couple of months to go, haven't we? I know there's Christmas.
2.5 months, perhaps. Yeah. What we'll try, I doubt we'll get back to drilling it this calendar year, but certainly early next calendar year, we'll be looking at getting back and drilling. And that's obviously, things do slow down over the Christmas period, and we've got 2 months before things probably start slowing down, and we need to finally go through all the data we're getting. We're also doing, in the process of doing multi-element analysis as well. So when we get the results back from that, we'll be able to make sure that we do understand the geology and lithology as well as we can before we start the next round of drilling. I think it is likely to be the first quarter of next year. In the meantime, we will be doing the geochemistry at certainly Rabbit Bore and potentially Peter Wangi before Christmas. We'll be doing and announcing the results of the Aeromag survey at Wadabi South, and so there's still a fair bit happening. There's a lot of field work to be done between now and Christmas.
Tell us about Wadabi South, and whether has that had much work done on it over the years, and how did you come across that as a prospect?
That was picked up through our contacts. It's been owned largely by smaller prospectors over the time. There's a number of gold workings there. There's about 3 kilometres of strike of highly prospective greenstone with a lot of shearing in it. So it's structurally prepared. It's largely undercover. There are workings there, but not extensive. But a lot of the tenement is undercover. So we need to get in and do the geochemistry to identify if there is gold, or how extensive the gold mineralisation is. And also the magnetics will identify where the key zones are and lithological contacts, so that we can target in on those areas. But it's an area which has had very little work, but has high prospectivity, and hence we'll be going through the rigorous process of assessing it through magnetics and geochem before we select drill targets. But I'd be hopeful that there are a number of gold projects in the area on our lease and off our lease, and I would think that we will be able to define some mineralisation in that area.
In terms of where you are you surrounded by some of the bigger boys? So give us a visual of who's around some of your prospects. Or are you in the middle of nowhere, Jonathan?
No. All our ground we're surrounded on all our ground. All our ground is in over prospective greenstone and shearing. So, there's no ground in the area that's not pegged. For example, at Mount Davis near Leonora, we're surrounded to the south by St Barbara and to the north by Red 5. So, we're sandwiched between those two major companies, and they've obviously both got major resources, one which is mining and one which is in the process of developing a new mine. And that's pretty much the case elsewhere. Like throughout the Kew-Meekatharra area, it's ground there is very difficult to find at the moment because it's been covered, and even the granite's been pegged largely. So there's not a lot of ground at all.
Jonathan, how did OZZ get lucky and get 5 projects which sound to me like they could be very, very interesting, especially when you mentioned 4 metres, I think it was at 19.1 grams per tonne, wasn't it?
I guess to a degree we started looking around for ground in the first half of last year, and that was while the gold boom had started, it wasn't as advanced as it's become in the last year. So there were still opportunities using contacts that I had and also that Alan Lockett had. We talked to people. We talked to a lot of people, and we were lucky to a degree, I think. Some of the ground we looked at was no good, and we moved on, but we picked the best of what was around at the time, and we've put together a coherent package of prospective ground, which, as I've been saying, we'll explore logically and methodology.
Method. I know exactly what you mean because I can't say that word. Methodically. There we go.
Methodically, that's the one. Yeah. Sorry.
I love having fun on these interviews. All right, Jonathan. If somebody's listening to us today and going, "Oh, I don't know OZZ Resources," you've only just listed, so you've got plenty of cash in the bank. You don't need to go to the market for funding. What would you say to somebody who said, "Oh, let me look into this a bit more"? What do you think is the key for shareholder value right now with OZZ?
I think you don't add value without exploring. We are actively exploring and intend to continually explore. So we will have a steady news flow over the rest of this year and next year as well. We obviously think all our projects have potential, and we will be looking to maximise and determine how great that potential is. And I'll also say that we're also have an eye open to other opportunities. We are mainly completely focused on gold in Western Australia at the moment, but if other opportunities came up, whether they be in gold or not and in Western Australia or not, we would certainly look at them. So I would hope that we'll be able to expand and develop our portfolio of properties over time as well, so that, should any of these projects not reach the levels that we'd like them to, then there's a plan B, C, D, and E. And that's how we intend to run the company. We intend to keep going leanly. We want to put a lot of our money into the ground, and we want to keep our projects either in a state of development or being turned over, so that we can keep maximising the opportunities for our shareholders to gain some real wealth.
Which is what we love, shareholder wealth. Jonathan, final question for you. There have been some pure gold companies out there that have been finding other commodities when they've been doing the exploration. Are you seeing any of that at the moment? Are you looking for any of that? Or are you saying to me, listen, Kerry, this is very strong gold mineralisation. We're not seeing anything else in our projects at the moment?
No, there's our ground has lots of potential, and we're obviously at the early stage of assessing that. But some of the ground around us, certainly around Kew, in the Kew area, there have been some wonderful announcements of discoveries and successful drill programs which have been put out in the last 6 or 12 months. So, and So I think there's potential in our ground to have some really strong results or further strong results. And the ones we've said, like 7 metres at 9.1 grams per tonne is a very good result, and 12 metres at 2.66 is also a very good result, and there are a host of others as well. So I can see that the potential in our ground is very good, and as I've said, we'll do our most to exploit it as soon as we can.
All right, well, there's going to be plenty of news flow coming out of OZZ in the coming months. A little bit of a quiet period at Christmas, maybe for Christmas Day. But I love the fact that you've hit the ground running. You're doing a lot of drilling. There's going to be a lot of news flow coming up. Thank you so much for joining me on Small Caps today, Jonathan. And let's chat in the new year when more results will be coming out.
Look forward to it, Kerry. Thank you.